we're seeing who the best fighter in the world is, and we're getting people to watch so that the fans can appreciate something that I find to be the most loved thing in my life, next to my wife, you know? So, I don't know. I think it's a shame when that shit happens, especially when it's like an ego thing. But also at the same time, I don't really think that that's too much of what Jon Jones is doing. I'm more speaking in terms of what I kind of see in other people.
Why is that fight not happening? Well, it could be for two reasons. It's either that Jon Jones is using a strategy to have more money.
You could say it, GSP. Go for it. Come on, say what you want to say.
But I think that's why he's doing it. You know, if he's doing it just to hold the title, to serve the wave, this is...
Joe Rogan has disclosed that Jon Jones wants $110 million to fight Tom Aspinall in the White House next year. The UFC world, which is used to mayhem, did not expect this one. When the concept of a UFC fight on the White House grounds first appeared, it seemed like wild speculation, but it's suddenly gathering traction, bringing with it a flood of anger. Jones, who formally retired barely a month after UFC 303, looks to be gearing up for a high-stakes comeback. But his stipulations are causing debate.
Looks like Jon Jones finally wants to fight Tom Aspinall, but this time at the White House. I told you guys that Jon Jones was playing chess, not checkers, this entire time. Someone just tweeted this at Jon Jones saying, "Ducking Tom Aspinall, ? Best decision you ever made, ? Jon responded, "Choosing when to attack and where you want the battlefield to be is not ducking, my friend." Try telling every single one of you that Jon Jones was never ducking Tom Aspinall. It's very clear here that Jon Jones is playing chess.
The demand for $110 million has rapidly become the most divisive story in MMA this year. While some fans and commentators see it as a daring move worthy of Jones' prominence, others, notably his former adversary Daniel Cormier, accuse him of keeping the sport hostage. Cormier did not mince words on his 3 Rounds podcast. "I figured he was trolling," Cormier said. "I assumed he was playing with the supporters, giving them a hard time since he knew how much they wanted him to fight Tom Aspinall." Cormier was plainly frustrated up with ambiguity. "Why are you playing with people's emotions?" he asked. He appears to be doing a lot of this recently. For Cormier, Rogan, and many others, it's more than simply money. It is about respect for the sport, its fans, and the competitors who are waiting for answers in the heavyweight class.
The star Aspinall would have been if we just would have got that fight over with right away. Think of the star Ngannou still would have been for this company if you just would have had that fight and moved it on. And then you have an epic rivalry between those two, Aspinall and Ngannou. Like the years and years of amazing heavyweight fights could have been happening if Jon Jones just wasn't a petulant child, and if the UFC wasn't just the, "Oh no, it's fine, he's just finding himself," like just so annoying. And
Jones' surprise retirement in June 2025 plunged the division into chaos. After months of avoiding a championship, defense against Aspinall, who had gained traction by defending his interim title against Curtis Blades in 2024, Jones handed over the belt and walked away. Dana White, who had long promised a unification fight, had to change gears, and Aspinall was elevated to indisputable title status. Only 2 weeks later, Jones filed application to re-enter the UFC's anti-doping testing pool, fueling speculation that he was never truly retired.
But what did you make of it when you heard Jon calling out Alex of all people?
You know, I think he does do this because, you know, Alex Perez now he's like big star in the UFC, you know, everybody loves him, so he know what he's doing, you know, but I believe he should to fight against Aspinall, but I think he a little bit afraid of him, you know, because Aspinall is someone who can really stop him and beat him.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's what I think that he believes if he...
Following Rogan's statements, these rumors spread like wildfire. Everyone is already talking about a UFC 300-style event in the White House in 2026, with Jon Jones as the headliner against Aspinall. The spectacle is unprecedented. A historic sight, a generational talent, and a whopping $110 million demand. However, as excitement grows in some parts, condemnation pours in from others.
And say, no, you're not going to take this. And do you know what Jon Jones did? You have it. I don't want to fight. You can have it. This is unbelievable. The greatest of all time. What a load of shit. I'm sorry. Never going to call that him the GOAT. Ever again. Because being the greatest of all time is not just about winning. And that's what Jon Jones doesn't understand. It's about how you conduct yourself throughout the whole of your career. Are you willing to fight the biggest challenges?
The Jones is accused of exaggerating his worth beyond justification. He has not competed since 2023. His passivity, along with his refusal to commit to face Aspinall when the division was aligned, is turning off people who formerly respected him. You either fight or hit the door, Cormier declared frankly. From Cormier's perspective, the entire affair fits within a long-standing pattern. Jones backs off, acts coy, tweets cryptic messages, and then throws out outrageous phrases when the spotlight disappears. This time, the figure of $110 million feels like a statement. It's about control, not just money. Jones is signaling that the ball is in his court, but the MMA community is not having it.
I was absolutely confident that Jones versus Aspinall was done and we were going to do it. And here we are today, so you never know. I don't get into it until it actually happens.
Is there a fight that you almost made that didn't happen?
Aspinall Jones.
The
fight was done. Everybody had agreed to it. Everybody agreed to the whatever, and then Jones came back and said, "I'm going to retire."
Aspinall has remained relatively quiet about the situation, continuing to train and making media appearances that portray him as the de facto heavyweight champion. With a record of 153, the British fighter is peaking at the appropriate time. Fans are curious to watch how his athleticism, speed, and composure under duress compare to Jones' battle IQ and unconventional style. However, the more Jones stalls, the more public opinion favors Aspinall. Rogan's admission has sparked a flurry of social media reactions. Some admirers are phoning. Jones is deluded, and it appears that he is pricing himself out of the battle to avoid it. Others see it as a brilliant maneuver, putting UFC management, particularly Dana White, into a corner where they must either reject the notion outright or start pulling strings to make it work. Jones, after all, has always been a master at leverage.
I'm as big a Jon Jones fan as anybody, and I've always defended he's not afraid of Tom. He's willing to fight anybody. It's hard to not fall into that narrative here, though. To me, fighting in the White House, that doesn't do it. But maybe I'm a different person, maybe everybody looks at it different. For me, if you tell me they're going to have a fight at the White House, cool, all right, it'd be cool to do it. If not, whatever, a fight's a fight. Maybe John looks at it different.
Critics, however, have compared this to the Conor McGregor effect. They claim Jones has embraced McGregor's strategy of demanding exorbitant compensation and turning fights into media circuses. However, unlike McGregor, Jones has not provided knockout entertainment or consistent performances in years. The criticism is fierce. Jones' Instagram is full with followers imploring him to accept the battle or accusing him of avoiding Aspinall entirely. Joe Rogan, who has closely tracked Jones' career and even labeled him as the greatest fighter of all time, seemed astonished when he revealed the $110 million amount on his podcast. That's what I am hearing. Rogan said he is asking for $110 million to complete it. Now, if the UFC and the White House want to make history, they might get close, but I'm not sure if that's true or simply Jones tossing numbers out there.
The star Aspinall would have been if we just would have got that fight over with right away. Think of the star Ngannou still would have been for this company if you just would have had that fight and moved it on. And then you have an epic rivalry between those two, Aspinall and Ngannou. The years and years of amazing heavyweight fights could have been happening if Jon Jones just wasn't a petulant child, and if the UFC wasn't just oh no, it's fine, he's just finding himself. Just so annoying and so...
Whatever the motivation behind the demand, the outcome is obvious. Jon Jones has once again become the center of attention, and not necessarily in a positive way. Former fighters are starting to weigh in. Chael Sonnen suggested that if Jones asks for $110 million, Aspinall should ask for Buckingham Palace. Brendan Schaub claimed on the Schaub Show that the figure was unrealistic. pointing out that the UFC had never paid a fighter more than $10 million flat. "You're not Mayweather," Shaw explained. "You are not getting that type of bag." But others are fighting back against the hatred. Jones' followers claim that he is the only fighter capable of asking such a sum. "He is the best to ever do it." On Reddit, one admirer commented, "You don't undercut Michael Jordan if he wants to return for one more game."
If you're a sprinter and you take PEDs, you become faster than people who are not taking PEDs and you win a race. That's okay. You're a cheat, you've won, they'll take your title off you or whatever. That's fine. If your job is to hurt another person, physically hurt another person, which could potentially redirect the rest of their life post-fighting, you're an absolute piece of shit and you should never be able to fight again if you have any PED.
The White House aspect adds another dimension of mystery. While no one knows how serious the conversations are, some insiders have stated that with the U.S. celebrating its semi-quincentennial in 2026, the possibility of a huge UFC event taking place at a national landmark is not out of the question. President Trump's ties to the UFC and history with Dana White have only stoked speculation that a once-in-a-lifetime event may take place, with Jones versus Aspinall as the headliner.
But it's the legacy. To be able to go to the heavyweight division, take out everyone, and then take out the Jon Jones legend, you know, and then go back to even beating a few of these new school guys, will literally put Tom Aspinall as the GOAT of the heavyweight division.
However, like with anything in MMA, reality is slippery. Fans are currently stuck in limbo. Aspinall is ready. Cormier is seeking answers. Jones is playing chess. And Rogan has just sparked the fuse. Currently, Jones is under increasing pressure to either confirm the fight or walk away permanently. For the time being, his career legacy stands, but every tease, imprecise post, and exaggerated demand erodes the trust he has created with fans and other fighters.
But he's like the longest running heavyweight champion in the history of the UFC, isn't he? But he's only like he hasn't fought anyone. I don't think it's going to happen, you know. I think Jon gets a lot of money for being champion. I think the sponsors and that are paying him a fortune. And I think he's just dragging along, keeping the belt as long as possible because it's worth that much money to him. I mean, Jon's often struggled with tall people who are good boxers. I imagine he probably, if he did fight him, he would...
Top UFC coach Din Thomas has come out swinging against Jon Jones, criticizing the former champion for teasing yet another comeback despite having recently proclaimed his retirement. His dissatisfaction is shared by an increasing segment of the MMA community. Fighters, coaches, and fans are tired of Jones' unpredictable conduct and long-winded teasers. After months of anticipation for a fight with Tom Aspinall, Jones announced his retirement from professional boxing in June 2025, handing over the heavyweight title and leaving the sport. But just weeks later, he's back in the spotlight, indicating that he'll return not to fight Aspinall, but to headline a historic UFC event at the White House. Din Thomas, a well-known MMA coach and analyst who frequently appears on UFC broadcasts and podcasts, clarified his views during a conversation on Daniel Cormier's YouTube channel. He did not sugarcoat it.
I'll just come out and ask you, do you think he's ducking Tom Aspinall?
No. Jon Jones, I said it a million times, I'll say it again, he's never ducked anybody other than that one goofy time with the Chael Sonnen thing. He's never ducked anybody. And, I think the reality is whatever changed his mind with this fight, I don't know, you'd have to ask him that, but, he's 38 years old and I don't know.
Do you think if it was someone like Alex Pereira, he would fight them? And it's maybe Tom that he specifically doesn't fancy the match?
When I heard that, my first assumption was that he just loves getting attention. Thomas explained that he is only trying to keep his name out there. He is dangling his prestige over our heads, and I despise it. I'll tell you right now that I don't care whether Jones ever fights again. For Thomas, the Jones narrative has gone from captivating to tiring. He recognized Jones' greatness. Few would doubt that he is one of the most technically brilliant fighters in the sport's history, but they argue that his greatness is being obscured by unnecessary drama. Thomas said that he is without a doubt the greatest to have ever done it. But I'm not concerned if he ever fights again. Simply ride off into the sunset.
and say, no, you're not going to take this. And do you know what Jon Jones did? You have it. I don't want to fight. You can have it. This is unbelievable. The greatest of all time. What a load of shit. I'm sorry. Never going to call that him the GOAT ever again. Because being the greatest of all time is not just about winning. And that's what Jon Jones doesn't understand. It's about how you conduct yourself throughout the whole of your career. Are you willing to fight the biggest challenges, the biggest tests, go in there and test yourself again?
Instead of watching Jones flip-flop on retirement and social media, Thomas said he is focused on the active fighters who are putting in the effort and risking their health to keep the sport going. Do you know who I care about? I care about Iltopia, Dustin Poirier, and the guys who are putting their lives on the line for us. He stated, I care about those dudes. I do not care whether Jon Jones fights again. Thomas's remarks come at a time when Jones' professional narrative is once again altering. After formally leaving out of the sport in June, only weeks after UFC President Dana White guaranteed a unification battle between Jones and Aspinall, Jones revealed that he had re-entered the UFC's anti-doping testing pool. That action alone drew eyebrows. But what happened next sent the MMA world into disarray.
How do you think that would have gone, Aspinall, Jon Jones? Prime versus prime.
Prime, I'll go Jon Jones.
Really?
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
So what, you wouldn't even give Tom a go at the prime?
No. Like I said, I rate Jon Jones highly. I believe that he's the best to ever do it. And Tom is a, for now, he's the guy now, you know what I mean?
But if they would have fought, then you think that Tom had a strong chance because of the timing?
Yeah.
And fighting's always about timing. Boxing.
100%.
As America celebrated Independence Day, President Donald Trump publicly announced that the UFC would hold a fight event at the White House in 2026 to commemorate the country's 250th anniversary. Hours later, Jon Jones turned to Twitter to confirm what many people believed. He was interested in returning not for legacy or Aspinall, but for the opportunity to represent America on the most momentous stage in UFC history. Donald made his declaration on the morning of July 4th. I called the UFC's headquarters that same afternoon. Jones tweeted, I'll simply leave it at that, America, that tickles my pickle. In response to a fan's speculation about an iconic showdown, Jones doubled down. It would be, he answered. For me, it's about the opportunity to represent America in the White House. I do not care who I fight that night. I discovered my reason why. That's all I needed. Something that was greater than money.
UFC White House is crazy, dude. How's that even a thing? Is that allowed? Like, how is Donald even allowed to do that? Be kind of gangster, though. Chandler versus McGregor. Be kind of gangster. Aspinall. Jon Jones wants to fight on it. Classic. Back in the testing pool after 2 weeks. Bro is a troll and a half. He's not having his title back. It just can't be happening. All the round trip would be sick.
However, for many, including Den Thomas, that solution is insufficient. The uncertainties and contradictions are beginning to weigh on the entire division. Jones announced his retirement only a few weeks ago. Now he's suddenly inspired by patriotism and appears willing to fight anyone, including Aspinall, though he hasn't identified him specifically. Tom Aspinall, who became the undisputed UFC heavyweight champion after Jones retired, is caught in the center of this ambiguity. After defending his interim championship against Curtis Blades in 2024 and establishing himself as a true star in the division, Aspinall appeared to be setting up a definitive fight with Jones. That matchup, which had been promoted for nearly a year, was never materialized. Jones walked. Aspinall was crowned, and the fight seemed over.
Goliath and move up for this triple champ thing. Jon Jones, who took a few years but made good on his promise that he was moving to heavyweight, went up and fought Cyril Gane. We're like, okay, we've got some guys, right? Like, we might have lost Cyril Gane as a legitimate contender, but we got Jon Jones. That's okay. And we've got Tom Aspinall, who is a prime, even a young for his division, monster, who's got in several fights like less than 10 minutes of cage time. So he's giving the fans the knockouts they want to see, the high energy,
the submissions.
The submission. He's great on the microphone. You know, Tom Aspinall.
Jones is now back in the testing pool, fixated on the White House event. Aspinall may once again be on the radar. Dana White, the UFC president, certainly hopes so. White stated on the Full Send podcast that his favorite main event for the White House card is Jones versus Aspinall. The dream main event right now would be Aspinall versus Jones, White told Neckboy. White views the White House display as more than just an occasion. It's a significant moment in UFC history. He has promised to make it the baddest card of all time, promoting it as a spectacular pay-per-view card that can compete with whatever the promotion has done before. But making that goal a reality requires negotiating the ambiguity that surrounds Jon Jones. Does he truly not care who he fights? Would he really accept a fight with Aspinall, the fighter he seemed to avoid for almost a year? Or is this another clever ruse to keep relevance without risk?
Is there a fighter in MMA or the UFC that you just find absolutely insufferable? Because for me, it's Jon Jones, and there is no close second. Jon Jones defended his heavyweight title against a retired 42-year-old Stipe Miocic back in November. Ever since then, Jon has been saying, what has Tom Aspinall done to deserve to fight me? You know, besides Tom being the interim champ and having a defense with that belt, Jon has just found every possible way to not fight Tom, even retire.
Those inquiries are causing frustration. Many in the MMA industry now believe Jones is not just slowing his own career, but also the entire heavyweight division. Aspinall, aged 153, deserves a clear way forward. Whether that means confronting Jones, Cyril Gane, or someone else. The hesitation and Jones' ambiguous declarations are hindering the UFC from proceeding with clarity. Jones' actions are already beginning to shape how his legacy is perceived. Despite being a two-division champion with an unrivaled record, his numerous retirements, suspensions, and now questionable comebacks have produced a sense of exhaustion.
The fight will never happen. Gun to my head, I would have said Jon Jones will beat him right now. Tom has never been pushed into those championship rounds. That first time you feel that, I gotta get up off that stool after the third round. You needed to fight Tom now when he doesn't have that experience, especially as Jon.
Fans who once praised his domination are now questioning whether he's worth the bother. Despite the criticism, the potential of a Jon Jones return, particularly on such a historic stage, remains viable. His name continues to generate headlines, sell pay-per-views, and evoke the mystique of the greatest to ever do it. If the UFC can get a White House event and persuade Jones to headline, even his sharpest critics will most certainly tune in.
Is there a fighter in MMA or the UFC that you just find absolutely insufferable? Because for me, it's Jon Jones, and there is no close second. Jon Jones defended his heavyweight title against a retired 42-year-old Stipe Miocic back in November. Ever since then, Jon has been saying, what has Tom Aspinall done to deserve to fight me? You know, besides Tom being the interim champ and having a defense with that belt, Jon has just found every possible way to not fight Tom, even retire.
But it is a big if. Jones has yet to commit to a name, a date, or a complete training camp. His passion is more about symbolism than competition. That is what irritates people the most, including Den Thomas. It is not the idea of a return. It's the game playing, misdirection, and constant manipulation of audience expectations. The pressure is now on Dana White to cut through the noise and determine the future of the heavyweight division. If Jones is actually back and ready to fight, he must sign a contract, preferably with Aspinall on the other end. If not, the UFC must proceed without him, allowing fighters such as Aspinall, Gane, and Jilton Almeida to take the spotlight without waiting for a ghost. Jones' story has always been convoluted. His greatness is undeniable, but the method he achieved it has left many disappointed. Jones has made his own trip more difficult than it needed to be, with suspensions, legal troubles, walkways, and retirements. Now that the White House fight card has returned the limelight to Jon Jones, he has one more chance to write a fitting last chapter or to prove his doubters correct once and for all. What are your thoughts? Please share your opinions below and subscribe for future updates.